Before we dive into today's tale, we invite you to share your location in the comments below and remember to like and subscribe. On that Friday, I departed from the hangar sooner than I typically would. The guys had some matters to attend to, and after that, they likely set out since I wasn't there. I was filled with anticipation for the evening I would share with my lovely wife, Olivia. We had been acquainted for almost 6 years and had shared 3.5 years of marriage. We were both 29 years old. Recently, there has been a noticeable shift in our closeness, and throughout the last month, she appeared somewhat preoccupied. With a steadfast resolve to create a memorable evening, I meticulously orchestrated every detail. I selected a few bottles of fine wine, ribeye steaks from the butcher, and roses from a florist, far superior to just picking them up at the supermarket. I imagined the soft glow of candles illuminating our space, wishing for the chance to reconnect and discuss whatever had been weighing on her mind. With a stroke of fortune, we might wrap up the evening ahead of schedule and leave on a positive note. I arrived home well ahead of Olivia and immediately set to work. I tidied up the house, dressed the bed in fresh sheets, and arranged candles in the bedroom. I arranged the kitchen table with our finest silverware and napkins, aiming to create an atmosphere that felt truly special. I uncorked a bottle of wine to allow it to aerate and set the roses by the entrance, ensuring she would notice and enjoy their fragrance the moment she arrived. She cherishes the fragrance of roses. In the kitchen, I began preparing my renowned scalloped potatoes. Delicate potato slices, gently coated in olive oil, enhanced with a sprinkle of salt, pepper, and a hint of rosemary. I carefully added the ideal amount of mustard powder to the steaks, enhancing their flavor beautifully. With everything in place, a sense of pride washed over me at the outcome. At this moment, I simply needed to bide my time until the person who held my heart would come, allowing me the chance to express the depth of my feelings for her. I wished this enchanting sensation would guide us through the weekend. As I arranged the potato slices on the baking tray, the oven warming up in the background, I suddenly heard the front door creak open. Olivia's voice rang through the air. "Ethan, are you home?" That took me by surprise. My car was parked out front, and the roses by the door should have clearly indicated my presence. As I completed the delicate task of sprinkling rosemary over the potatoes, her voice floated in from the living room, drawing my attention. "Okay, we arrived here first. How about we settle down on the couch? It will create a more favorable impression if we are seated while he stands as he enters the room. In that manner, he will be prepared when we share the news with him." "What do you want to know?" I pondered as I entered the living room. A scene unfolded before me that took me completely by surprise. Olivia, clearly taken aback by my unexpected arrival, stood alongside another man. Upon first sight, I identified him. Olivia had brought him up often in recent months. He had just taken on the role of deputy head of HR. Standing at just over 180 centimeters, he is fit, blonde, and undeniably handsome, with a hint of arrogance in his demeanor. My expression likely revealed my confusion, prompting him to smirk and nonchalantly extend a hand. "Greetings, Ethan." "I am Hugh," he introduced himself. Still in a haze, I grasped his hand. His grip was unyielding, almost oppressive, as if he sought to assert control. He halted mere inches from shattering my hand. What a fool. I remained still, absorbing the warmth of his smile directed at me. At last, Olivia found her voice, shattering the uncomfortable silence. "Ethan, there's something we must share with you. Is he going to stay for dinner?" I pondered with a wandering mind. If needed, I could thaw another steak. Before I had the chance to interject, Olivia pressed on. "I will be spending the weekend with you. It's merely a single weekend." Her words struck me with the force of a freight train. It caught me completely off guard. "Excuse me?" I found myself stumbling over my words. Hugh advanced, his demeanor self-assured, almost arrogant. "This will be beneficial for you," he remarked. "I will impart knowledge that transcends imagination. Your time with her will be even more rewarding after this. It's just a single weekend and she'll never experience anything like this again. Absolutely not. I sensed myself breaking free from my astonishment. If she does, I stated with conviction, I will end our marriage. Hugh approached, his presence looming above me. His expression shifted to one of shadow as he dropped his voice to a threatening whisper. No, you won't, he said with a chill in his voice. I won't be held back. Should you decide to take that step, I assure you that the consequences will leave you struggling to move forward from that moment on. Your journey will be marked by suffering. The decision lies in your hands. He took a step back, positioning himself beside Olivia with a confident smile. She's going to spend the weekend with me, he continued in a relaxed manner, as if chatting about arrangements for a gathering. I will impart a great deal of knowledge to her, and she will return to you. Following this weekend, I will never engage with her again. She will remain steadfast in her loyalty to you. He glanced at Olivia and said, Right, darling? Referring to her as sweetheart. What a cruel jest. I remained there, bewildered, utterly speechless. Have you two already spent time together? I charged, my tone cutting, ignited by the way he referred to her as sweetheart. Absolutely not, Olivia declared, her tone tinged with a hint of defensiveness. That would be unfair. Is this not? I retorted. I need a drink, I muttered, turning away. I'll get you a beer, Hugh said, his tone irritating me deeply. I believe I can manage that on my own, I snarled, fixing him with a fierce glare. Hugh rested his hand gently on Olivia's shoulder. Just give him a minute, sweetheart, he said, his patronizing tone only intensifying my frustration. He will require some time to digest this information. After weeks of discussion, we suddenly revealed it to him in just a matter of minutes. He must come to understand that this is unavoidable. He'll concede, they always do. It was evident this wasn't his initial attempt at such a maneuver. I burst into the kitchen, my thoughts swirling. Olivia's desire to follow me was palpable, yet he restrained her. In that instant, it seemed to be the most prudent choice. And that infuriating darling, him referring to her that way time and again. It drove me absolutely mad. What a conceited imbecile. In the kitchen, I noticed the open bottle of wine catching my eye. I filled a glass and took a hearty sip, yet it didn't feel quite right. This wasn't the moment for wine. I strode into the garage where my beer fridge awaited, yanking the door open with such force that it almost detached from its hinges. I seized a bottle of Jack Daniel and forcefully closed the fridge door with a resounding thud. What a pair of absolute fools, I murmured to myself, the sharpness in my tone reverberating in the silence around me. I searched high and low for a bottle opener, but it eluded me. Wow. It was likely still in the kitchen. I couldn't bring myself to step back inside just yet. Time was essential for me. It's time for reflection, to inhale, for consideration. Drawing on my military training, I positioned the bottle cap against the sharp edge of the workbench and delivered a decisive blow. The cap soared into a corner, yet I paid it no heed. The turmoil unfolding within my home occupied every corner of my mind. How was I supposed to handle this? As I stood there, allowing my anger to subside just enough for clarity, a strategy started to take shape in my thoughts. Gradually, I found my composure. I made my way to the far end of the garage, opened a cabinet, and took out what I required. With determination, I slipped it into the back pocket of my pants and made my way back inside, my conviction strengthening with each stride. I took a long sip, finishing my beer, then reached for another, before making my way back to the kitchen. This time, I skillfully used a bottle opener to open the bottle and started to prepare something different. I cautiously retrieved the largest knife from the block and discreetly tucked it into the back of my pants next to the other item. It was solely for the purpose of instilling fear. It was never my plan to find myself behind bars. I had a clear plan in mind, and confidence surged within me. With a deep breath, I stepped back into the living room. There they sat, those audacious individuals on my couch, intertwined in each other's grasp. Upon noticing my presence, they promptly released their grip and moved apart a bit. Excellent. The equilibrium of influence appeared to have changed, albeit slightly. Their gaze was fixed on me, anticipation hanging in the air as they awaited my next action. I retrieved my phone and casually tossed it onto the coffee table, clearly indicating that it was recording. Q rose to his feet, extending his arms as though attempting to embody a mediator. Hey there, friend. It will last just one weekend. That word, my friend, annoyed me even more. A self-satisfied, conceited individual like him could never be my friend. He caught sight of the phone, glanced at it, and remarked, I believe you're capturing this. That's acceptable, but you understand the consequences if this ends up on social media. The discomfort you experience will pale in comparison to the agony of having both legs shattered. Do you comprehend? I gazed at him, my tone unwavering. This recording serves as a safeguard for me, and, oddly, for both you and her too. He scoffed, unmistakably indifferent. Refrain from considering the idea of sending this to your workplace. I serve as the deputy head of HR. All grievances are directed to me, and I have connections who will alert me if anyone attempts to circumvent my authority. It's not merely about knowledge, it's fundamentally about connections. Understood? I comprehend. I responded with gravity, maintaining my focus on him. However, I have a suggestion on how we might approach this matter. He wore a smirk, his confidence radiating unmistakably. Nodding toward the phone, I stated, For the record, please tell me precisely what you intend to do with my wife. With an air of confidence, he proclaimed, I'm going to whisk your wife away for the weekend and provide her with an unforgettable experience. She will discover fresh and thrilling methods for us to satisfy one another, and then she will return to you, prepared to provide the enjoyment you have been longing for. He smirked once more, radiating self-satisfaction, though likely not until the next weekend, he added with a chuckle, because she'll be so sore she won't even be able to walk properly. His nonsense was utterly unbelievable to me. What unfolds next after that? I inquired. She returns home to you, having had the time of her life, he remarked with a sense of pride. Yet she has assured me that her loyalty to you will endure, day in and day out, for the entirety of her life. She'll introduce you to fresh skills and techniques that will leave you amazed. I glanced over at Olivia. Olivia, is this truly what you desire? Indeed, Ethan, she implored, her voice tinged with desperation. It's merely a single weekend, and I assure you that after that my loyalty will be unwavering. Turning back to Hugh, I pressed, and what occurs if she fails to uphold her promise? Just as she vowed to remain loyal to me on our wedding day, what if she betrays my trust once more? Will you return to haunt her as you've promised to do to me? Or what if a deity of desire appears and presents her with an even more enticing proposition? My tone was laced with irony, yet it seemed to fly right over his head. He appeared bewildered, as if he had never faced such a question before. He finally said, as if that settled everything, She promised me she'll stay loyal to you after this weekend. Absolutely. I'm fully convinced by her words at this moment. I retorted. With my eyes locked onto him, I declared, This is the arrangement. I'll battle you for her. Hugh stood a bit taller than I did, with broader shoulders and a youthful appearance, yet that arrogant smile remained ever present on his face. If that's what you desire, let's proceed, he remarked. I want to make the most of the weekend, so let's resolve this right away. I'm on board, I responded. Olivia covered her mouth with her palms, a familiar gesture that betrayed her nerves. Two men fighting over me, how thrilling, she exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with delight. I faced her and said with a low intensity, I'm not going to fight for you. You don't deserve it. I am standing up for my dignity. The glimmer in her gaze faded, and her expression grew solemn. I glanced back at Hugh. If I emerge victorious, you'll depart and cease all communication with her forever. Not even while at work. If you come out on top, you'll have your weekend with her, and I won't go through with the divorce. However, there are guidelines to follow. He continued to wear that self-satisfied expression. Okay, I'm ready to listen. The initial one to hit the ground loses. Only fists, no blades, all else is open for play. And whoever emerges victorious, let's keep the authorities out of it. All right. No police, he said, a smirk playing on his lips. Are there any knives available? With that, I drew a large cookery knife from the waistband of my pants and set it down on the coffee table. His eyes grew large with surprise. And I suppose you've got a gun, too? He asked, a smirk still playing on his lips. With a grin, I reached behind my back and revealed an air pistol, a perfect replica of a Glock. I had my doubts about his knowledge of firearms, yet this one appeared convincingly authentic, particularly as I gripped it tightly in my hand. For a brief moment, his confidence wavered, yet he endeavored to uphold his air of superiority. I'm going to take you down hard before I lay you flat, he declared, trying to sound menacing. Go ahead and give it your best shot, I responded with calm confidence. Keep in mind the 3 guidelines: only peace, no tools of harm, and no law enforcement. All other topics are open for discussion. I am not foolish. I understand, he retorted. You mischievous rascal, there will be consequences for your actions. I could very well have her by my side for the entire week. If you emerge victorious, feel free to pursue anything you desire, I remarked, moving in closer. However, if I succeed, I will at least hold my head high for making an effort to protect my marriage. I will embrace my reflection without any sense of shame. In an instant, Olivia's demeanor transformed. She likely sensed the resolve in my tone, a fervor she had witnessed in me previously. It became evident that events were unfolding far from her expectations. Kindly refrain from that. I have reconsidered my stance, Ethan. Please refrain from this action. Please, she cried, her voice trembling with panic. Hugh, it's time for you to go. This is no longer something I desire. She understood that I was taking control. I spoke with a deep, resolute growl. It's too late, darling. This began with him weeks back, and I'm determined to bring it to a close right here and now, by any means necessary. Take out your phone and capture it. I require evidence. Olivia found herself overwhelmed, the circumstances slipping further away from her grasp. I gestured toward the kitchen door and said to Hugh, "After you." He paused for a moment, then made his way through the kitchen and headed toward the back door. As he stepped outside, I quickly gathered the preparations I had arranged earlier. As he crossed the threshold onto the patio, I delivered a precise kick to his back, propelling him into the flower bed with a thud. He leapt to his feet, his eyes aflame with rage. I simply smiled and replied, "No rules," which wasn't completely accurate, but the message was conveyed, and it achieved the intended result. He was furious. Flawless. The scales of influence had tilted even more decisively in my direction. It would have been ideal if he'd collapsed onto his back immediately, but I didn't foresee that happening. He aimed a strike at me with his right hand, a deliberate, obvious punch that could have easily been preceded by a cautionary note. With a swift and decisive movement, I effortlessly obstructed his advance and launched the mix of salt, pepper, rosemary, and mustard powder from my right hand directly into his face. He grasped his face, howling in agony. I surged ahead, attempting to force him onto his back, yet he somehow managed to stagger backward. With tears streaming down his face, he dropped his hands, shooting a fierce glare in my direction, his nose running uncontrollably. I approached him with a steady demeanor and delivered a powerful punch to his stomach. He bent low, yet remained upright. One hand gripped his stomach, while the other lingered on his face. I acted without a moment's pause. I struck him in the groin with every ounce of strength I could summon. He fell to his knees, heaving and moaning. He lacked the capacity to grasp all that was causing him pain. I attempted to maneuver him onto his back once more, yet he fought against it. In a moment of sheer frustration, I landed a solid punch right on his face. His head jerked back and he swayed on his knees, yet he remained upright. The next strike connected squarely with his nose, sending blood flying in all directions. The anguish etched on his face was a sight rarely captured, even in films. It was unrefined and harsh. I struck him across the face with an open hand. He turned his head sharply, and I responded with a swift, backhanded slap. That was a foolish decision. My hand throbbed painfully afterward. Drawing nearer, I whispered with conviction, "This can be halted. Simply recline on your back." I lifted my hand, poised as though to deliver another blow. His knees gave way, and at last he fell onto his side before turning onto his back. The scales of influence had shifted entirely to my advantage. I cast a fleeting look at Olivia. Tears flowed down her cheeks, yet I couldn't discern if they stemmed from fear, regret, or an entirely different emotion. I seized Hugh by the hair and pulled him upright, not softly. Pulling him toward the garden gate, I swung it open and whispered, "Keep this in mind. You'll never have the chance to converse with her again, you coward. And if the authorities arrive, this encounter will seem like just a prelude." I pushed him through the gate and closed it forcefully behind him. The foul odor assaulted my senses as I glanced over my shoulder. He had made a mess of himself. Olivia remained in place, her phone clutched tightly in her hand, tears shimmering on her cheeks. "Send me a copy of that video," I said, my voice devoid of warmth, as I brushed past her and made my way into the kitchen to wash my hands. At least Hugh would carry a subtle hint of rosemary, a result of the seasoning I had tossed at him earlier. I ascended the stairs, with Olivia trailing behind me. I opened the closet in the spare bedroom and retrieved a suitcase. Silently, I commenced the task of gathering her things, beginning with her intimate garments. "What are you up to?" she inquired, her voice quivering. "I belong to you. I am yours." I chose not to reply. I continued to pack my belongings. We had a mutual understanding that I wouldn't seek a divorce if I lost, I stated with composure. But, as you've just highlighted, I emerged victorious. This indicates that I am ending our marriage. Perhaps you might consider spending some time with your parents. I brought the suitcase down the stairs, swung open the front door, and flung it out into the open air. With a determined resolve, I reached for my phone and dialed her mother's number. "Greetings, Ethan. This is a delightful revelation. How may I assist you today?" Mary's voice rang out, bright and full of joy. "Mary, could you please come and pick up your daughter? I am ending my marriage with her." I answered curtly and ended the call before she had a chance to reply. To emphasize my point, I shared the audio recording of Hugh boasting about his plans to spend the weekend with her daughter, highlighting that it was precisely what she desired. I switched off my phone, grasped Olivia's hand, and led her outside. I closed the door after her, secured the lock, and turned a deaf ear to the persistent knocking that ensued. The knocking eventually ceased. I anticipated a visit from the police, yet none arrived. Maybe Hugh felt a deep sense of embarrassment for being bested by someone who was physically smaller than himself. No matter what, it was inconsequential. On Saturday, I dedicated my time to sifting through Olivia's possessions and engaging in some calculations. After my grandparents' passing, the house was bequeathed to my sister and me. I had secured a modest mortgage to acquire her share, and I was aware that I would have to compensate Olivia for the amount she had put toward the mortgage. While I toiled away, I meticulously edited the video and audio clips, sending them off to every email address I could uncover at Olivia's workplace. Individuals like Hugh inevitably attract adversaries, and I was certain that someone would make sure this information found its way to HR. On Sunday morning, Olivia's father came to gather the remainder of her belongings. He paused momentarily before uttering a word. "Could you possibly..." The look on my face likely conveyed the answer to the question he hadn't completed. With a deep sigh, he reached out his hand, and we exchanged a firm shake. I have a feeling that her parents had a considerable influence on the ease of the divorce proceedings. It has been a little more than 4 months since I initiated the process of divorce. On a serene Saturday afternoon, I found myself in the garage, meticulously cleaning my air guns in anticipation of the shooting competition scheduled for the following day. The doorbell chimed, shattering the tranquil stillness. I was just about to rise and answer the door when I heard Ivy's voice say, "It's okay. I will take care of it." Ivy, the woman responsible for maintaining the order of my home, emerged at the garage door shortly thereafter. A woman is at the door claiming to be your wife, approximately 170 centimeters in height, with blonde hair, possibly in their 30s or slightly older. I've set the kettle to boil and left her in the living room, a mix of curiosity and mild irritation on her face. I ventured into the living room. Olivia was the one. She had undoubtedly put in the effort to present herself well. Yet, there was an unmistakable quality about her that felt altered. She appeared to have aged, maybe by 5 years since our last meeting, and she didn't seem well. This marked the first occasion I laid eyes on her since the moment I had to send her away. "What is it that you desire?" I inquired directly. "I am providing you with the amount we agreed upon for the house." Olivia's expression tightened, and she inhaled deeply before uttering a word. "Ethan, I truly apologize. I committed a grave error. He persuaded me, assured me that everything would turn out fine. He said that if you truly cared for me, you'd allow me to follow through with it." His words carried an undeniable weight. She hesitated, weighing her next words with precision. One of the other women even shared with me how it had turned out for her. "Is that other woman still in a relationship?" I inquired, fully aware of what the response would be. She paused, uncertainty flickering in her mind. "I'm uncertain. I no longer work there." Once the video was viewed and the audio recordings played, I felt an overwhelming sense of shame. It seemed that no one was inclined to engage in conversation with me. I had to depart. "I must inquire," I stated, my voice devoid of inflection. "Are you still involved with Hugh?" "No," she replied swiftly. "I had no intention of doing that. He honored his part of the agreement and vanished from my life without a word. However, his time was brief. After missing a few days of work, it became clear that everything had unraveled. He was expelled from the building. There are whispers that another husband gave him a beating." "It wasn't me," I replied with a hint of sarcasm. "I understand," she replied gently. "As you pulled him toward the back gate, you issued a warning, and he kept his distance. The authorities never arrived at your doorstep, yet I can only picture you glancing back over your shoulder for some time. He got what he deserved. He lacks decency. Respectable individuals do not engage in relationships with other spouses." She gazed at me, her eyes filled with tears. "Kindly, Ethan. Could we give it another shot? I promise I won't make such a foolish mistake again. I truly adore you, and I believed it was in your best interest. I realize now that I was mistaken, and I sincerely apologize. It was an error, a decision that will haunt me for all time." Just then, Ivy stepped into the room, balancing a tray adorned with cups, saucers, a teapot, a milk jug, and an assortment of biscuits. She placed the tray on the coffee table and remarked with a straightforward tone, "You might want to let it steep for a while." Then, without uttering another word, she vanished back into the kitchen, leaving Olivia and me alone once again. Olivia observed Ivy's departure before redirecting her attention to me. "Or have you already discovered someone to take my place?" I responded, "That's Ivy. She tidies up here every week. In addition, she is employed as a cleaner at our hangar. I've been incredibly occupied with my responsibilities that I haven't found the time for it myself. And, just to inform you, I had to secure an additional mortgage to settle this payment. Olivia cast her gaze downward, her voice barely above a whisper. Is there a possibility? Kindly, Ethan. I brewed a cup of tea and savored the first sip. It lacked strength. Ivy was indeed correct. I ought to have exercised more patience. Nearly 4 months have passed, and I still haven't received any communication from you. You chose not to contest the divorce. What is the reason for this timing? She paused, glancing at her knees, a clear sign of her embarrassment. I realize I have committed a significant error. I aimed to allow you some space. I wished you would feel my absence, and I needed to summon my bravery. My mom mentioned that if you truly care for me, you might consider giving me another opportunity. My father believes I'm squandering my time. Yet, I felt compelled to give it a shot. Kindly, Ethan. I savored another sip of tea, my feelings still held in check. At that moment, Ivy re-entered, balancing a tray filled with cleaning supplies. She made her way to the stairs. I'm just going to tidy up upstairs, she declared with a bright smile. With a sly grin, she remarked, There's nothing in your bedroom I shouldn't be able to see, correct? I trust you've stored away all your restraint equipment. Without pausing for reply, she raced up the stairs, laughing softly to herself. I cast a fleeting look at Olivia. That's merely her small jest, I stated matter-of-factly. We never really delved into anything like that. Perhaps we could have. Yet, you always seemed disinterested in venturing beyond the usual. Except it seems, with that fool, even the simplest approach was too overwhelming for you. Olivia's face turned crimson, yet I didn't allow her the opportunity to reply. My frustration bubbled quietly beneath the surface, even as I made a concerted effort to maintain my composure. What are your thoughts? I stated, my tone resolute. You caught me off guard when you said you wanted to spend the weekend with another man. You meticulously orchestrated this for weeks and then presented me with a mere 2 minutes to make a choice, even resorting to threats of violence if I didn't comply. The idea of 2 men vying for your affection thrilled you, as you wished for your partner to emerge victorious, allowing you to indulge in a weekend filled with passion, only to return to the comfort of routine afterward. Yet for me, that would have become the new normal, wouldn't it? In your thoughts, I could never have lived up to your partner after that. Olivia gazed at me, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. Indeed, she confessed. I felt a thrill when the 2 of you were on the verge of battling for my affection. However, I noticed you take out a knife and your air gun. At that moment, it dawned on me that I had erred, and that Hugh was destined to lose. I never wished for you to find yourself in that predicament, Olivia, and I sincerely regret having placed you in that position. My heart was fully yours. Yet that love came to an end the moment you revealed your plans to spend the weekend with him. In recent weeks, you've appeared withdrawn and subdued, and I sensed that something wasn't quite right. I attempted to lift your spirits, but now it's clear to me why. I see you were intending to be with him. I prepared a delightful dinner and arranged flowers just for you. Yet you selected him instead of me. You didn't even bother to come and speak with me. You sealed the deal with your threats. How could you betray someone you claim to love? Trust has been shattered, and the mere presence of you brings me discomfort. I informed her that the moment had come for her to depart. She rose and made her way to the door, which I opened for her. She gazed into my eyes and whispered, I love you. I sincerely apologize, but I comprehend. Just before she departed, I tossed out one final comment to her. Do you recall the girl who spoke about Hugh? Indeed, Alicia Brown. Well, she's on the verge of becoming Alicia Smith. Her husband is insisting that she reclaim her maiden name. She walked away, tears streaming down her face, and I chose not to look back as she departed. I found myself pondering Ivy's well-being upstairs. I approached and discovered my bedroom door slightly open. I entered the room, loosened my shirt, and let it fall away. Ivy might have a few choice words for me later, but honestly, I was indifferent. As I entered the room, my gaze fell upon Ivy, sprawled on the bed, anticipating my arrival. Life has settled into a calm rhythm, and I've learned to cherish that. The dwelling, previously steeped in conflict, now exudes a tranquility I never imagined I would encounter once more. Ivy and I have created something genuine, something enduring. We took our time, allowing things to unfold naturally without imposing any expectations on ourselves about what a relationship ought to look like. And in a way, that's precisely what brings it all together. She moved in a few months ago, and to be honest, I never anticipated how effortlessly it would all come together. We seamlessly glide into our everyday rhythm. Quiet mornings with a steaming cup and tranquil evenings spent on the porch, observing the sky transform into hues of orange and pink. There is no excitement, no games. Two individuals intertwining their existence, their moments, and their journeys. It's amusing. I pondered for an extended period, believing I required something greater, something grander, to attain a sense of fulfillment. What I share with Ivy is precisely what fulfills me. She never imposes her wishes on me, she doesn't attempt to change me, and she doesn't anticipate anything beyond my true self. And that, in my opinion, is the essential point. I have dedicated a significant portion of my life to fulfilling expectations and seeking to satisfy others. Yet with her, none of that is necessary. She embraces me, imperfections and all, and that's truly sufficient. There's no need to revisit the past or the chaos I created with Olivia. We focus on the present and the possibilities ahead. We simply press on, and that's precisely what I require at this moment. Each day spent with Ivy presents a fresh chance to create something greater, something more satisfying. She is finally pursuing her own projects, a passion she had set aside for far too long. I take great pride in her accomplishments. She has always stood by me, especially during challenging times, and now I feel it's my responsibility to reciprocate that support. We support one another, find joy in the little moments, and create a home filled with warmth, a sanctuary where we can simply exist. The uncertainty of the future doesn't concern me, nor do I feel the need to dwell on it. For the first time in what feels like ages, I find myself at peace. Ivy and I have taken our time with everything. Just freedom. Just authenticity. Yet, as I gaze upon her and reflect on our shared journey, I realize that I am precisely where I am meant to be. She is my companion, in every possible way, and I wouldn't alter a single aspect. I once believed that happiness needed to be something monumental, something extraordinary, but I've come to understand that it's found in the subtle moments, the daily experiences, shared with someone who genuinely understands you. With Ivy, I've discovered precisely that. Dear listeners, we invite you to share your thoughts in the comments section below. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to stay connected.